So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the roundtable discussion from today's CEO Boardroom Meeting. Today we have two guests who are both long-term attendees of this event, one of whom has also been a frequent speaker, and one of whom is making her debut. So you can work out who that is from that. Nearest me, Karoly Radnai is the managing partner of Andersen in Hungary. He is also former chair of the tax committee at the American Chamber of Commerce, and I've lost count of the number of times you've spoken for us, I think 4 or 5 times. Next to Karoly is Veronika Špaňárová, who needs no introduction to those of you who are regular guests, because she herself has been a regular guest. She's Managing Director and Country Officer of Citi Hungary. She's also a former winner of our Expat CEO of the Year award. Ladies and gentlemen, please give them both a round of applause. Thank you. That was only so I could have a drink of water. We'll start at the beginning, as the Von Trapp family like to say. The most obvious place, I think, for us to start is to look at the economy. So let's start with the Q3 GDP figures, which came in just recently as 0.6, when they were expected to be at around 1%. So 1% was hardly generous growth, but we're below that. How would you evaluate this performance, and what are your predictions for the year ahead based on that? Let's start with you, Veronika.
Thank you. First of all, good morning, bon appetit. It's interesting to see the table from this side rather from that side, but I'm very honored to be invited to speak, and happy to offer the data and the opinion which we have within Citi as part of our research, and also to share our something from our 40 years experience here in Hungary. On the GDP, I would start with slightly stepping back, and we know that there are several factors which are influencing the GDP growth at any point in time. This is the industrial output and the manufacturing, services, consumption, retail, and I would say in Hungary, especially being a very open economy, what we are always looking at also is the export function and how the countries, which are the main trading partners, how they are doing, right? So we have seen a couple of years back, for example, during COVID, that the manufacturing output and the industrial was strong, while the consumption was a bit modest because it was careful. It was also during the time of the energy prices. What we see now is that over the past couple of quarters, we see that the GDP is driven by the consumption, by the domestic consumption, and by the services. Okay, so this is, and what we see during the latter part of the 2025 is actually that these factors which I've just mentioned are kind of balancing themselves out. So what we see is that the services are the main driver, services and the domestic consumption, which is the confidence of the domestic consumer to spend and with services still on the trajectory of the higher prices. So for us at Citi, based on the research, the latest baseline project for GDP growth in 2025 is even slightly below the 0.6. It stands at 0.4. It is a small difference. So we are pretty much in line with that, and there are several factors which will influence the recovery. We see the trajectory kind of going upwards. Main factor, or one of the big factors, will be the performance of the German economy, for example, right? Because this is the biggest and the strongest trading partner. Investment activity. What we are watching very slowly is also how the EU funds are being spent and utilized, and many different factors. For the 2026, we have a positive outlook. Right now, the Citi research is that the forecast is expected to pick up around and to be around 2.2%, and this is due to the revival of the investment cycle, and also strengthening the external demand. So we will see we have a lot of investments which came to Hungary over the past couple of years. Now they are building the capacities. We see that gradually to be deployed in the economy. So that will all have a positive impact, which we project for 2026. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Karoly. I know that you're a tax expert rather than an economist, but what's your take on the state of the economy?
I think there are, bon appetit, first of all. I think there are two factors that, one thing is that everybody is aware that there's not sure historically, but it's one of the lowest rate of investment so far. So it's not only this year, but last year. And it's already a trend that the investments are much lower than before. And also that has a big part from the missing government spend. So the government is not spending on the investments. The companies are not spending on investments. And then even if there's an investment cycle, then it already has a positive impact of the GDP. If there are no investments, then it makes a negative impact. So that's one side. But why there are no investments enough? From the government's point of view, we understand that there has to be a cut because there was an overspend, and now we are practically paying the price of previous government spend. And the other problem is the relatively high wage cost. So, it's not necessarily only the multinational companies, but also the small and medium-sized enterprises that suffer a lot. So there is a short of labor. The demography works against the labor situation. So the companies are actually trying to keep labor as much as possible, and there is an increasing labor cost. And what we have seen recently that. And especially that's true for the small and medium-sized enterprises, that they are spending more on labor than on investments. So that's for them. It's very important to keep their labor, and that actually goes against the GDP growth. So we'll see that how the labor situation will change, possibly with the technology, with the AI. There will be changes, but currently it's a very difficult situation for anybody in the economy. And I think I can speak also on your behalf that you all share this situation that you have to keep your labor. You have to there's a much higher increase in the labor cost than the inflation would make it reasonable. And then it goes against the GDP growth because then the profit is shrinking.
And of course, I'm sure our guests are aware of this, but it's worth making the point, underlining the point that both of you represent large organizations. So this is something that you are actually living through yourself in your day-to-day life anyway. Thank you for that, both of you. I think it's important to set some kind of baseline for the conversation. Veronika, I'd like now to sort of dig into your banking network and your banking knowledge. Since the beginning of the year, the forint has been steadily strengthening, to the surprise of many, I would suggest. So what are your predictions for where it will go against the euro? We know that this is a particularly important comparison. It's now November. Many of our CEOs will be thinking about skiing holidays, and they want to know what the exchange rate is for that. But obviously, it's also really important for how they take their businesses forward. So what's your estimation for how the euro forint exchange will go for the remainder of this year and into next?
Okay, I would start with the underlining factors because it's always, and we have heard it in the roundtables before. It is not easy to predict the exact number, but we have to take a look at the underlining factors and the policies. And what we see, there are two factors which are contributing to the stable and the stronger forint. And one is the monetary policy. And then it is the external position and the capital flows. So what does it mean? The monetary policy. I'm sure that everyone has been following the actions and the approach of the Hungarian central bank, which has been characterized as the careful and patient approach. The central bank has been very consistent and very credible in the message of looking at the stability, at the monetary stability, at looking at the ways to control the inflation and to have the stable exchange rate. We have seen that the interest rate, the main base rate, it remains at the 6.5%, which is a measure. Not to rush with the decrease of the interest rate to risk the inflationary pressure. So that approach, and the central bank has been very, very consistent, very vocal about it, and that brings actually and is talking about prioritizing the foreign exchange stability. So that is the message which has been very well heard, and therefore the forint has been stable and has been strengthening as well. And the second is the external balance have improved also, and we see I already mentioned the materializing on the previous FDI inflows, as they have been announced, let's say last year, previous year, and now they're taking the effect as the companies are building the capacities together with the investment to the local bonds program. So this is the second factor, which is contributing to the strengthening and to the stability of the currency. And our prediction is that towards the end of the year, it will stay about at the same level, maybe a little bit weakening around 390-ish. And going to the next year, we don't expect any big changes in the foreign exchange rate. Yeah?
So just
slightly weakening, but not any abrupt changes.
So you would expect what we've seen this year to continue through next year?
Yes.
Yeah,
if these two factors come, because this is if these two key factors, if they continue, then the trajectory of the exchange rate will continue as well. Yeah?
Thank you very much. Karoly, do you have anything to add?
I can only confirm what Veronika has said. That I mean,
thank you.
It's if one thing that I'm more relaxed about the economic outlooks is the forint. So we were very much concerned 2 or 3 years ago when we saw that there was a very high volatility and nobody could really understand and know that where the forint goes. And also there were like external shocks, the oil crisis, energy crisis. So those days are gone. We really have a very stable and reliable national bank policy. And actually Hungary pays a very significant premium compared to the euro. So that explains why the Hungarian forint is strong. And as Veronika said, the national bank's communication is very consistent. That as long as the inflation is high, and then they are keeping the rate as high, and also then one of the most important focus for them is the stability of the Hungarian currency. So I don't expect that we would reach the 400. That's an emotional threshold that. We should stay below that, and actually the national bank has the asset now to keep this in control. It will be interesting that what the government's reaction will be, because their interest is completely different. They would more like to weaken a bit the Hungarian currency because they would like to boost the economy. So the usual conflict is on the table, and I mean, but I think that the national bank's independence now is very strong. So I don't think that. And we'll see. I mean, election can come and everything can change. Still, the national bank will stay, and most likely this policy will be on.
Thank you, Karoly. You mentioned the general elections, so let's get to that and the effect that may have on business. We know most people in this room will know that, well, everyone in this room will know that the election is due in the spring. Most people will also know that there is a fine Hungarian tradition. Whoever is in power in the run-up to the election suddenly manages to find that they have more to spend, at least theoretically. And thus far, we have had tax breaks, something that you can definitely talk about, cheap loans, pay rises for state employees, even talk of a 14th-month pension. I don't know where this starts. It was interesting when we added the 13th month, but you know, are we heading to a 15th month? Who knows? But given that sluggish growth that we've already talked about, how will any of this be paid for? We have to balance, or the government has to balance its books somehow. So, what do you think are the implications for the 2026 budget and beyond? And is something like post-election austerity almost inevitable?
I think so, but
they won't. Of course, they won't.
Is the question at how much? I mean, these measures are introduced in a phase-by-phase basis, so that the 2025 budget is not impacted that much. And one of the main focus of the government is to demonstrate to the credit agencies, the rating agencies, that the budget is safe, and actually I have to give a credit to them that they after the first few months they made a very strict and persistent approach, and actually the budget is in relatively good shape. And for them, it's a very important mission, because if the international rating agencies downgrade Hungary, then Hungary would have to pay not only this 4% surplus on the interest, but most likely more, which would then very counterproductive to keeping the budget, and it would be against any kind of government spending for future years. Currently, the budget is if we don't take the interest into account, then it's even. So that the revenues and the expenses are, which is quite a healthy situation, and we haven't seen this for 10 or 15 years. And it's unfortunately the interest that we have to pay. So it's a very important focus. But yes, the elections are coming, and we see that there will be more and more spend scheduled for 2026 than 2027 in form of tax breaks and additional pension and other premiums. So it will be very, very difficult for the future government. Any of it will be. So I think it's inevitable that we will see further austerity measures, or you can call it however, but there has to be cuts, and it will be very difficult, because I mean, just you also experience everyday life that the government is not spending on public services too much, so that it will be very difficult to cut any of it.
Thank you. Veronika, did you want to add anything to that? No? Okay. It's fairly clear. It's fairly clear that whatever happens, they won't call it austerity, but we will likely feel it anyway. Governments traditionally don't like the A word. On that general theme of the elections, though, do you think, does this have any impact in, we discussed investment earlier, and the fact that there was relatively little investment going in. Do you think the election itself has any impact on that. So are companies taking a wait and see approach to it, do you think? They're going to just see who forms the next election and therefore put off spending decisions, or is that too short a time frame? Companies don't think like that. Let's start with you.
Yep, okay.
We'll start with you, Veronika.
Okay, good. So I will be speaking. I will be speaking based on the experience which we have here as the and the model which we use as the decision factors, and also what we have seen speaking with several other companies. Just saying, it may not be every company has their own decision criteria and the decision model to make the investments. So it is very hard to generalize. Yeah. What is my experience, what is our experience, is that the investors have a set of criteria how they look at the country and investing or growing in the country. These usually are, let's say, availability of talent, cost of labor, business environment, which is potential support programs from the government, taxation, geopolitics in the sense of security, geographic location is very important, because this is where Central Europe actually stands out, because the global service centers, for example, time zone-wise, can serve both Asia and the US, and infrastructure, which is both telecommunications, availability and speed of internet, and the physical infrastructure. From my experience, the companies are rather looking at these underlying factors and the economic factors when making the decisions. So also looking into the measures of the public sector. It's rather, okay, how does that? What is the potential implication, rather than, okay, there is the election. The election itself is an impact. Of course, it is a data point. But from my experience, the factors based on which the investments are made on the economic factors. And we have seen already, since the beginning of the year, we have seen quite a large number of new investments which have been announced and which will be going on here. I would also, I would like to give also credit to HIPA, to Hungarian Investment Promotion Agency, who is doing a good job, very good job in promoting Hungary and promoting these factors for the potentially new investors, but also for the investors who have been here for already quite a long time and are looking potentially to enlarge the business here. Karoly, would you agree, or you have a different view?
I agree in what sense that I think there's quite a much overstatement about the election.
Yeah.
So that what we expect, and so it's whatever the election will be, Hungary will be most likely fine. So that's I get it. What is interesting is rather than how the 2026 government spend will be, and then we'll see that if there is a new government, it is likely, not most likely, but it is likely that the new government has better access to EU funds, which can help the Hungarian economy to grow, but not immediately. So it wouldn't be just like that. It would just save the 2026. We will see that how the international environment will. So Hungary is 70% dependent on the international environment. So if Germany runs well, then Hungary is going to better run. If Germany is still suffering, Hungary is going to have problems. Again, it's not dependent on the election. Indeed, there is a sign that companies are waiting, but not for the election, but what to expect afterwards. So that most likely there will be measures, and those measures will somehow influence their investment decisions, whoever wins the election. So it's and I see a trend that it's only 6 months to go, so that important decisions are not necessarily taken now, but they indeed wait. But again, it doesn't have a very significant impact on the economy overall.
Okay, the government is the government. Business will have to work with whoever is the next government anyway. So I suppose it's, and it is a short, it's, as you say, it's a data point. It may be an important data point, but it's just one data point.
It is, and really looking at the economic impact, potential economic impact of that, rather than elections.
But we also have an actual case in point. Not everyone is in wait-and-see mode. Veronika, as I'm sure you will have read in the BBJ, if nowhere else, recently hosted the global Citi CEO in Hungary. And on the back of that, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Trade, Peter Szijjártó, with whom she met, announced that an agreement had been reached for Citi to continue expanding its activities in Hungary, creating more jobs with the government's support. I wonder if you could walk us through that process. And just as a bit of background detail, I know from an earlier conversation I was having before breakfast started with one of our guests that there is at least one other company sitting at this room who will have major jobs to add in the very near future. But I won't announce that person because I'm not quite sure how public that is, although I will hope to announce it later. So could you give us some kind of give us some kind of insight into that process? How long have you been working on that? And maybe give us some details about what is in the works.
Sure, and thank you. And first of all, we have been very honored and grateful to welcome our global CEO, Ms. Jane Fraser, here just about 3 weeks ago. It was a great recognition for how important Hungary as a country and the team here and the clients and the environment is for Citi. And it was especially remarkable because I'm sure majority of you heard me saying that already. It is our 40th anniversary in the country, so we have 2 anniversaries: 40 years since Citi started to work in Hungary, and it has been 20 years since we opened our Citi Solution Center, which is the global business services center here. So it was a very remarkable day for all of us at Citi Hungary that our CEO came. She spent the day here with us, meeting with Minister Szijjártó, meeting with Governor Varga. We had a lunch with our top clients. Mr. General Manager, thank you very much. We had the very nice lunch at the Duchess bar on the rooftop, which I hugely recommend to everybody because it was wonderful. Thank you. And we chose that from many locations around the city. And of course, it gave the importance of what we are doing here to us, and I would also say to the country. Now on the expansion, I will go with the Business Services Center. We started the Business Service Center 20 years ago. We started as 8 people and 1 function. Have been growing steadily through then, and now we are 3,000 across 20 different functions, predominantly specialized on the technology, on the financial reporting, and on the information security. So, for example, we have added during the pandemic, we have added more than 400 jobs, 500 jobs. So we have been consistently growing and investing into enlarging the team here. I think it's sometimes, and I'm sure that this is for many of the colleagues around the table, that growth is not that visible. It's not because it's not a big announcement, a new stream of X hundred jobs, which kind of hits more the awareness, but it is the consistent growth of the roles and of the importance here. Yes, we also have the Technology Innovation Lab, which is the R&D center, which is for the information security for Citi, and that's where we plan to further invest. And that was the topic of the discussions, which we have had with our CEO and with Mr. Minister Szijjártó as well. So we are really looking forward to investing more in that.
Is there any idea at this stage how many jobs we're talking about?
We are not saying that. We are not saying that yet. It's more of the creating, enlarging the current team. And enlarging the capabilities of the investment, so moving more and more specialized jobs here with the value add increase.
So it's both people and roles.
People and the roles and the functions and the technology.
Okay, and I think it's also worth making the point about we were talking about the election previously and how that's not necessarily a key determinant in timelines. You're taking on people during COVID, a time when many others are at stasis or losing jobs. So, investments come when they need to come. Karoly, I hadn't planned to ask you this, but Andersen, any big news you want to share with the room?
Oh, unfortunately, we are not that big than Citi, and we are not planning yet an international business center. But just to comment on and congratulations for this.
Thank you.
Very nice results, and that what I see is that there is also a change in the government's communication on what kind of investment they would like to incentivize. So I mean that. We are shifting from this product manufacturing thing towards the higher added value services, and the Minister for National Economy is much more vocal to subsidize more the higher added value services, and R&D is a very substantial part of it, and they also have plans how to subsidize companies outside of Budapest, which is a kind of a challenge. Because of the labor and the mobility of the Hungarian people. But I see that there's a much more kind of macroeconomical thinking behind what kind of investments they would like to support, which will eventually most likely contribute more to the GDP growth than before.
And we see it also on the new support programs which have been introduced, which are in line of this message.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that neither of you would describe yourselves as foreign policy experts, but you are both plugged into global organizations. And as we've already alluded, much of what influences the Hungarian economy is, in any case, beyond the government's control. How do you see international affairs, so trade deals, sanctions, the on-off tariffs, and the geopolitical tensions influencing the Hungarian economy next year? I know that that's a bit of a crystal ball question, and it kind of depends on what happens. Stuff happens, but what are your expectations for how things might develop along that front? We'll start with you, Karoly.
So let's start with the fresh news when the Prime Minister returned from the US and he announced this new credit facility of Hungary guaranteed by the US. This is the swap line. Which is a kind of a potential credit that gives comfort for the government that if something goes wrong due to external factors, then we have a shield to protect the interest of the Hungarian currency. So most likely a little lower premium will be enough to keep the forint stable, but only a little lower, and that possibly that saving could be spent on GDP growth. But otherwise, I don't think that Hungary has much of room of flexibility. So we will anyway follow the streams of international trade. So as just I said, that if Germany proves to perform better, then Hungary will be better. The influx of although China is already has a great share in the FDI, still their share in the GDP is not that influential. It's much more the continental Europe, and the same is true for the US. That although historically is the third largest investors, their share is shrinking. and despite of any good relationship between the governments, this cannot be just turned around from one day to the other. So I don't expect that Hungary will be any way independent from the international happenings, and most likely if the European Union runs better, then Hungary is going to run better.
And I mean, it's despite 15 years now of the opening to the East, 75% of trade is still with the EU. So it's very clear that that's the single most significant factor. Veronika, anything to add?
I would also go back to the factors, because I think that it was already discussed. Trade corridors and the supply chains, how they will run, how smoothly they will run, energy prices, and the whole I would say infrastructure. Raw materials is another very important data point, mainly for the manufacturing companies. So the development of the smoothness of the supply together with the price of the raw materials. And then I would say the overall financial stability, which is good, and that goes back to the the financial sector in Hungary is very stable, supported by the monetary policy of the central bank. But the banks are very well capitalized, very healthy. So this is the stabilizing factor, which is in the country, and then everybody is watching the trade deals, of course. I think that this is now getting balanced. And with the expectation how will the final form and shape of the trade deal between the EU and the US will look like. As Karoly mentioned, a big dependency on the larger economies, given Hungary is the open economy and very much export oriented.
And of course, Hungary has limited ability. Foreign trade deals are very much the remit of the European Commission.
Exactly.
So Hungary has some input into that, but basically has to go with what is agreed. Ladies and gentlemen, we have two very knowledgeable and gifted speakers. And as my children constantly remind me, I am not the font of all knowledge. So, are there any questions from the floor that we can put to our readers? Anyone have anything they want to ask or explore?
I'm usually the one who's asking the question, but I will not do that.
Well, do you have any questions?
No.
Of yourself? No questions? My word. Yes. Ákos, president of AmCham.
Thanks, Robin. You both are friends, so I'm sorry for the hard question. So elections next year, and I wonder, from an economic point of view, if Fidesz stays, what you think is going to happen, and if Peter Magyar wins, what's going to happen? What's going to be the economy's impact on their policy? I'm sorry.
No, I'm fine with the question. So if Fidesz wins, then most likely Hungary is not going to have access to the EU funds, and they have to do something with the government spend. If I don't expect that there would be a very quick growth in GDP, and with the definitely higher spend next year, they will have to do with something with the income side, which, I mean, it would be a very difficult. It would be a very tough job for Fidesz, because to increase any of the taxes. If Peter Magyar wins the election, then the EU funds would somehow help him, not immediately. And I feel it a bit naive that he expects a lot of new taxes from the wealth tax to be introduced. If we see that how much money Hungary needs and how much he plans to collect from the wealth tax, they are not comparable. So I mean that should be much more. It may be a good political message or emotional thing for the voters, but it will not solve the problem. So either the government spend has to be cut back, or something in the revenues have to be increased. And you know the options are quite limited. So there is a trend of cutting back the surtaxes, so that's we still have some surtax. I don't expect that the new government would have the ability to cut it back. The corporate income tax rate is a big question, whether it makes sense to keep it at 9%, especially with the global minimum tax of 15% for large multinationals. So I wouldn't be surprised if that would change, but it's obviously not mentioned at all at this moment. Nobody likes to speak about the personal income tax, and we see only that newer tax breaks are given to certain groups of the society. I wouldn't be surprised if that should be changed, because it's not going to be sustainable. So we will have very difficult times.
Thank you. Veronika, anything to add?
I don't really feel well equipped to build on that. I'm not I don't have enough data to.
That's fine. I think there is also a bit of naivety from some elements of the public who seem to think that replace Fidesz with TISA and immediately EU taps are switched back on. There would be a period of time before that money starts to flow in any case. So that's not...
Absolutely. So, I mean, there is the framework is known, that what Hungary has to implement, a lot of changes in various laws, and there are milestones, and it's still just the ability to have access to it. It's not receiving the funds. So then we have to implement the operational programs, and then the investments have to be put aside. So it's at least 1 or rather 2 years that the EU funds finally arrive after that.
It's an important point. Any other questions from the table? No? Then we've covered the ground. Well done us. Last chance. Anyone? No? Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. I always look for a phrase when we're talking that seems to sum up much of our thinking and the direction that we're going. And I think this time, Karoly, you came up with it. Whatever the election result, Hungary will be fine.
It's great, Karoly.
Which I think is a reassuring thought to take with us. Beyond that, I mean, we know that there are difficulties ahead. We know balancing the budget. Okay, fine. Apart from the interest rates, we're pretty close to a balanced budget at the moment, with I would suggest, big question marks about what happens after 2026. Regardless of who wins, it's going to be the budget is going to have to be very carefully looked at. I thought actually that last answer was really interesting. I know that certain areas of taxation are something that AmCham in particular has been interested in. The double taxation treaty with the US for a start, but whoever comes in is going to have. I try not to always look through the lens of the United Kingdom, and yet that's where I come from. If you cast your mind back to the last UK general election, when it was obvious that the Conservative Party was not going to win, it was not obvious how large a majority the Labour government would have. But what was certain was whoever came into power was going to have difficult hand to play, and I think that will be the case next year. And then I guess it's up to us up to you and you as businesses to steer your way through those storms, whether they are choppy or otherwise. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like once again to thank our roundtable panelists, Karoly Radnai, Managing Partner at Andersen in Hungary, and Veronika Špaňárová, Managing Director and Country Officer at Citi Hungary. Give them a round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you.